Revolutionary greetings, comrades. Migration is a topical question in South Africa as we approach the 2024 elections. A number of political parties are using migration as a key electoral question. We have seen the rise of right-wing movements, which are clearly anti-migrants, in particular anti-African migrants that move to South Africa. But migration is a global phenomenon. We see the movement of migrants across the globe. We see mainly African migrants who drown in seas trying to get to Europe and North America. The Communist University has had a brief discussion on the migration question. If you listen to liberal views that dominate social media and other mainstream media platforms, the blame is placed on the very people that are victims, the migrants themselves. The question gets asked, why do you move to South Africa? Why don't you resolve issues in your own countries rather than coming to South Africa? That's the normal accusation that we're all used to now. But the Communist University, through Comrade Dominic, traces this from around 1480 because the Communist University characterizes this global migration as a continuation of slavery. It is a new form of slavery. That's how the Communist University characterizes this. It traces the slave trade, which began in and around 1480 in Sao Tome, where people were sold as slaves to work in plantations. This spread in Brazil and in other countries, and these slaves were going to across Atlantic to work in plantations. So since 1480, slavery has taken different forms, as the Communist University argues. We saw around 1800 where slavery began to take root in Britain, where Africans were sold into slavery, mainly by the traditional leadership. The Communist University further argues that we are now in a neo-colonial state. This is how Kwame Nkrumah characterized Africa and the other colonies, former colonies, that when you get independence, what we call independence, I'm not sure if I'm actually using the right term, but if you get independence, it does not mean you are independent to the extent that you control your own economy. You simply become a neo-colonial state, and most of our countries are neo-colonial states. Africa continues to provide cheap labor to North Atlantic bosses, as the Communist University argues. We have seen thousands of African migrants trying to cross to Europe, some drowning in the seas. In this part of Africa and Southern Africa, we see the influx of migrants to South Africa. Because South Africa, in the main, its economy is highly developed compared to other countries within the SADC region. So it is expected that migration then moves down south. And the Communist University notes that India is now modernizing, China is now modernizing. It is Africa that is not modernizing. So Africans continue to leave the continent to sell their labor. And they continue to be paid slavery wage. If you listen carefully to the debate within organized labor in South Africa, is that migrants accept very little. Migrants do not join trade unions. They do not fight for better working conditions. They do not fight for a living wage. We remember the incident in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, in Isipingo, outside Durban, where workers had gone on strike and the migrants were brought in as cheap labor to replace the workers that were on strike. And they sparked violence. We have seen how migrants, from the days of apartheid in farming communities, where they are used as cheap labor, on the day they are supposed to be receiving their salaries, they are then deported, arrested, deported. We see the exploitation of migrants at the workplace. So in all this migration, the biggest beneficiaries are the bosses, because capitalism itself is about exploitation. So the bosses want to employ cheap labor to maximize profits. It then pits local workers and the migrant workers. Hence we see these fights that happen at the workplace or in communities. So how then do we deal with this question? How do we resolve this question? Unless we dismantle the neo-colonial state, we will not deal with the question of migration. We will not address it. We will not find a solution. South Africa can talk of building high walls, putting more technology along its borderline to try and prevent migrants from coming to South Africa. But it is not the answer. The answer is to dismantle the neo-colonial state in Southern Africa and the rest of Africa. Once you destroy the neo-colonial state, we then do what China and India have done, which the Communist University argues, that Africa must then modernize. You cannot modernize under a neo-colonial state because our resources get taken out of Africa. We are not in control of our own economy. So this debate continues as we go to 2024 elections. But we submit that while we understand the pressure that migration brings, particularly in South Africa, as revolutionaries, we must begin to lead in this debate and begin to say, how do you dismantle the neo-colonial state? Let's have a discussion around this question, because without dismantling the neo-colonial state, we will always have these fights in communities. Please write your comments in the comment section. Like this video, subscribe. If you're on TikTok, please do follow us. Let's have this conversation. Thank you. Amandla.